asked me to start this afternoon just to tell you who we are, and hopefully all of you know who we are, but just as a 3 or 4 sentence who we are. CART Fund's a 501(c)(3). We raise money for Alzheimer's research. We operate under the premise that every single research grant that we fund gets us closer to the puzzle of solving the Alzheimer's difficulty. 100% of what we raise goes to research, and we provide seed money for high impact, out of the box thinkers to prove their hypothesis so they can then go to the deep pocket folks and get additional money. As a brief history, let me tell you Roger Ackerman's story. Back in 1995, Roger and his wife, Deanie, buried her mother. They'd cared for her for about 15 years while she suffered from Alzheimer's. And during that period of time, Roger looked for a cure, couldn't find one, looked for people doing research to work on a cure, couldn't find many of those. So after the funeral, he proposed a project to his club, his Rotary Club of Sumter, South Carolina. And the proposal was, let's ask the members of our club to come to lunch on Monday and empty the change from their pockets in person. Club accumulated change, give it away in the form of research grants focused on Alzheimer's research. The club board approved. He then presented it to the club in general, and the CART Fund was born. CART at that point stood for coins, because in 1995, billions and billions of dollars changed hands in coins every month, and that doesn't happen today, but that's what it was back then. So the CART Fund today is CART, just like it was in 1995. The C today still stands for coins, but also stands for currency, cash, credit cards, and checks. Whatever you want to give us, we can use. AR is Alzheimer's research. That's all we do. We don't focus on anything else except research for Alzheimer's. T is for trust, and yes, it's a 501(c), but you can trust us that 100% of what you give us will go to research. 100% of everything donated goes to research. Roger had 4 rules when he originally proposed this crazy idea to his club. And the first was that CART would not compete with Rotary Foundation or Rotary Polio, and we still comply with that rule. Rotarians are very generous people, but once they've given to polio and the Rotary Foundation, generally they still give to other things, and we want to be one of those other things. Second rule was 100% goes to research, and we have complied with that for all these years, and we will continue to comply with that. And I'll tell you how we do that in a few minutes. Thirdly, CART's a seed funding organization. In other words, we fund researchers who have yet to prove their hypothesis. And then fourthly, Roger was adamant that the folks who collect the money, that's us, will not decide where it goes. And so I'll tell you a little bit about how we do grants in a little bit after we come back. But right now, let's move on to what we call TRAC, T-R-A-C. That's CART spelled backwards. And that's a separate 501(c), and that's how we fund the administrative costs. Yes, they're administrative costs. We can't get away from the fact that there are expenses. We fund through the TRAC fund about $56,000 a year in printing costs, banking fees, portal fees, fees related to zone meetings and pets, and fees related to filing tax returns and those kinds of things, and the cost of buckets. And so there are some expenses related to CART, but they're all funded by the TRAC organization. And lastly, we are governed by a board of directors, and participating districts, the voting members of our board of directors are the district chair and the district governor nominee. So if you're a participating district, you have 2 votes when things come up for a vote in the annual meeting in May. In between the annual meetings, that we are governed by an executive committee, and the executive committee meets every other month at least, and we do the day-to-day decision making and try to make sure TRAC and CART function well, and that we promote TRAC and CART, and that we provide you with information so that you can help us raise money. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tiffany and Terry, and we'll move forward.
Pleasure to join you this evening. And I've been asked to spend a few minutes on the CART portal. So what we'll do is just dive right into that. I will share my screen with you and we'll look at this in real time. I realize that we're talking to a combination of club and district cart chairs. So I'll try to make it there. There are some things that are different with respect to your two roles. So I'll try to differentiate those as we go. But the first thing is the login, the sign-in process. And I want to remind you that we're encouraging your clubs, we're encouraging frontline, rank and file Rotarians who are interested in contributing to CART to do that through the portal. Now, you could also do that for them as a club CART chair. You can make a contribution on behalf of a different person. Let me differentiate personal versus club contributions. Club contributions are things like the change that goes in the buckets. Or if you did, say, Pints for Polio type fundraiser, all Pints for CART, et cetera, and you collected some money and you want to just put it into CART as a club contribution. And under the assumption that we were primarily in this small change mode, we assume that the contribution is a club contribution unless we hear otherwise. Now, if somebody hands you a check for $100 at a club meeting made out to, the club and says CART down in the memo field, then of course you put that check in your bank account and then you make a contribution from your club bank account on behalf of that person to CART. And so you can, as a club chair, you can make a contribution to CART designated as a personal contribution of someone other than yourself. And we'll take a look at that. Now, on the other hand, we have recently created the Roger Ackerman Society of Recurring Contributors, and we're encouraging your club members to do that as well, in which case they would probably want to do their own CART login. So the way that works is you can either sign in as a current user, or you can sign in as a new user. And so if you sign as a current user, that means you already have a login. You've already been into CART. If not, then you can sign in. You can set up your initial login using your DACDB login, which is handy in that we know your club and your district and your email address and all that other stuff. So you simply get a CART login that looks and feels just like your DAC login, or you can set up a standalone sign-in. So I'll sign in as myself, get to an opening page here, and I want to talk about, first of all, just this whole business of making and managing contributions. You do that from the Make a Contribution tab. And in this case, the first thing we want to know is if this is an individual contribution, in which case you would need to add another user, say somebody from your club who's giving you a check at a meeting. And if you want to add a new user, you, first of all, if you're in a DACDB district, most all of Zone 33 and most of Zone 34, you just start by entering a last name here, and we scan the DAC database and take a look at anybody named Weaver, for example. And this will pop up my wife's name and my name, either one. So you click simply add a user, and we've got all that information. On the other hand, if we want to add a user from scratch, we click nothing in the select box. And then, of course, what you'll need to do, we give you another option to search DACDB, and then you can hard enter a first name, last name. Now, you'd use this in the case of you had an interested donor completely outside Rotary. You might still attach them to your club name, and you'll notice it defaults to your own district, whatever that is. And then you can find your own club name just by a lookup. You just start typing the club name, and anything that begins with Greenville or has Greenville in it pops up, and then enter an email address. So you're basically setting up a new profile for another person other than yourself so that you can credit this contribution to them as a personal contribution. Then scrolling on down, you'll notice we default to a club contribution. And it says right here, unless you otherwise indicate below, we assume all contributors are on behalf of a club rather than individual or district. On the other hand, if you are a district chair and you had a district event, you'd want to make a district contribution. Or if you click personal contribution, then we use that contributor information from up above. And of course, you enter the amount, And then notice this drop down here. Now, one-time payment means I'm just doing this once, despite the fact you may send money to CART more than once. You don't want to set that up as a recurring auto event. So one-time payment would typically be the default unless you're setting up a Roger Ackerman Society member, where you'd be doing a recurring once a month, twice a year, once a year, et cetera, 4 times a year, your choices. And then you choose EFT or credit card. You also have the option of making a donation in memory of someone or in honor of someone, in which case we have a volunteer within CART that acknowledges those and sends that information on to whomever it is that's being acknowledged or honored. Now, there is a function for the district chairs, and I have to mention this because it's essential, and that is there is a way to make what we call a manual contribution. And that starts over here on the contributions tab under administration. Now, you club users won't see that. The reason we use a manual contribution is to post into the CART portal a check that's been deposited directly into the CART account, which I believe is at Wells Fargo. The district chairs have those deposit slips, and we're encouraging you as club chairs to do your own entries. That takes all that time and effort off of another volunteer's plate. But sometimes you'll get a check that you can't deal with as a direct online entry, such as anything institutional checks, something from a brokerage account. Somebody sends you $500 or $1,000 out of their IRA, that sort of thing. Comes from Charles Schwab, that's not going to work as an EFT. So those checks are deposited in the bank, and then we can add a manual contribution, which really just actually sort of registers that deposit so we know who it came from, again, whether it was a district, club, or personal contribution and so forth. So you'd only want to be doing that if you were a district chair and you were making bank deposits of the checks that you were getting in. I'd like to move on now to some of the reports that you have available to you. One of the front runners is the CART Club Management Report. And when you open that up, it opens up to your district and your club. And of course, what you see in the CART Club Management Report is exactly what you'd expect. If there's a CART goal in place, it would be right here. And then the current year's contributions for the month, the most recent month, of course, that would be the month of July, current month as well. Year to date, obviously, so we're early in the year, $240. And then the prior year progress at the same date is compared. So you can get an idea in mid-year about where you are with respect to how you were doing in the prior year. And then also the prior year's total. So in the case of my club, we gave almost $37,000 or $3,700 to CART. We were at only $76 year to date. Last year, we're a little bit ahead of that, $240 sent to CART so far in the month of July. Now, you district chairs, of course, can look at other clubs, or you have the option of taking a look at a district report where you'll see all the clubs. Now, again, this will open up into perhaps a division report if you have a higher access level, and you can then open a given district. I'll open my own, and you see all the clubs, exactly the same data. Current year, prior year, goals, if there's one set. In this particular case, and per capita giving. Now, I will mention, you may have noticed that the club size has not moved since last year. That's because RI membership data goes through kind of a blackout period where they figure out what the official July 1st count is, and we're basically in the week to 10 days range away from that. So these club sizes will be updated as soon as we get that data from RI. For right now, they are last year's July 1 starting counts. Another report is the goal setting summary. And this is basically where clubs that have set a CART goal and 23-24 CART goal per capita, We have one on behalf of Goose Creek, $60 per capita, a total goal of 480 based on the 8 members. And then you can also set your own club goals up here so that these reports work for you. Now, I'll note that, let's take a club in 7770. Here's Barnwell County, for example, and you'll notice that we provide the prior year contributions for each of the trailing years. Would have to be 0 in 2023. We also note your best prior year contribution and then your best prior year per capita. So when you slide down here to set this goal, and again, we're talking about now the current year for 23-24, you can either set a goal per capita. You say, well, once upon a time, we did $30 a head. Let's see if we can push that to 35. And then the club goal will be calculated for you. Now, you could round that off, for example, just say, well, let's just make it 750. Finger that in. Whatever ends up in the club goal box is what you save when you save the goals. Click the save button up here.
What happens if you get a check, the district chair gets a check made out to CART? Where do we deposit that?
If a district chair gets a check made out to CART, you can go into make a contribution and you can simply deposit that check as if you were that person through an EFT, electronic funds transfer. So assuming it's a club contribution, let's put in an amount, scroll on down. It's one time and it's an EFT. It's not just vanilla club contribution, not from anybody in particular. And then when you click continue, then you have an opportunity to enter the routing number and account number right off the check. So it's an easy deal. You can enter a routing number. That'll be the left-hand number on the check. You can enter the account number, which is the right-hand number on the check usually. And do be wary, occasionally the check number, look up the top right-hand corner, check number 2400 or whatever, sometimes gets appended down in that machine readable line at the bottom, in which case you don't want to include the check number, just the routing number and the account number. The account type is always checking, of course, in that case, and you put the name of whomever the check is from, or Rotary Club of Columbia. And then the address information is just the return address information off of the check, and click submit. So that will, and assuming that that works, you'll get a verification response. Then you can simply mark the check deposited, put it wherever you're keeping these hard copies of these checks, because you should. You'll also get a confirmation screen with that. My suggestion would be you print that and attach it to that now deposited check.
Tiffany asked me to start but with the topic of tell your story. Now, every single one of you has a story about Alzheimer's. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so passionate about helping us. So let me just say how I got into this thing. In the late 80s, I managed an engineering team. And one of the folks assigned to me was an engineer who was about 60. And he spent 5 years with me before he retired at 65. Prior to coming to me, he built industrial plants all over the world, and he was a terrific engineer. He was one of the most detailed people that I've ever met, before then or since. If you know how to build an industrial plant, you know that there's a million different details you got to keep up with. And he was one of the best people to keep up with details that I've ever met. And I learned a great deal from him. What he learned from me was patience, because I was a very young manager and wasn't real sure what I was doing. But he retired at 65 with no indications of any kind of dementia or cognitive issues or Alzheimer's or anything. Great guy. 5 years later, at the ripe old age of 70, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And we attended his funeral at 76. The last 3 years of his life, he could not recognize his family, couldn't communicate with anybody. He was in a shell, basically, couldn't do anything he used to like to do. And when I would visit his family, it became very depressing to me. And in fact, I was still in touch with his daughter until she died a couple of weeks ago. And she would tell you and me that it was the worst 3 years of her life because Dad was still on Earth, but Dad really wasn't here. And so it made an indelible impression upon me. And about 10 years later, when I met Roger Ackerman, I finally figured out that we could do something about this. He had this crazy idea that we could raise money and do research for Alzheimer's, and we could eventually find a cure. And so that's how I got involved in this thing. And every one of you has a story. And my advice would be, whenever you're talking to people, tell them what your story is. And tell them why you're so passionate about raising money for Alzheimer's research. Because you have a story and I have a story, and our story, your personal story is the best way to kick off any kind of conversation. Tiffany asked me to talk a little bit about your relationship with your district. And we advise you to get involved with your district governor chain. Get to know them, establish a relationship with them, look for opportunities to promote the CART Fund in every district event you possibly can. In fact, if there's a district event that will allow you a tabletop display, take one and display it. It'll open all kinds of doors for you in terms of getting conversations begun in terms of what Alzheimer's is about and what CART Fund is doing. If you have a relationship with your district governor or district governor-elect, district governor nominee, convince them to put a little money in their budget for you. It will help you defray some expenses. If your district's like mine, is huge. Mine is huge geographically. It really is. And so if you have a lot to travel to do to go to clubs to tell them about CART Fund, there will be some expense involved. And so if there's a little bit of money in the treasurer of your district, then that'd be terrific. As you look at your district, we strenuously advise you to create a CART Fund committee. There's nothing worse than a committee of one. There really isn't. And so gather some folks around you who are also passionate about Alzheimer's and create a committee. As many on your committee as you can possibly find, you can find places to use them. You really can. Because what we really want you to do as a CART district chair is to communicate with the clubs. And my district has a bunch of clubs, 76, I think, last count. And so it helps if you have a committee of more than one to communicate with those clubs. Because what you want to, what I advise is to find a passionate person in every one of those clubs and have that passionate person in the club help the clubs focus on the CART Fund. In fact, in my district, I also have CART advocates, which actually function for CART like an assistant governor it does for Rotary. And they help communicate information about the CART Fund to a number of clubs for me. When you're communicating with your clubs, emphasize to them the need to use the portal. It is a wonderful help for the treasurer to pop into the portal and electronically transfer money that went in the blue buckets. A lot easier, in my opinion, than writing a check and putting it in an envelope and stamping it and forever calling me and say, what's the address? And so convince your clubs, if you can, to use the portal every single time you possibly can do that. Lastly, let me just mention a question that was asked a while ago about the TRAC. TRAC is our administrative arm, and TRAC is funded by donations from all kinds of opportunities. TRAC is also funded by return on investment of money that we have in the bank. And so we need about $56,000 a year for TRAC. And we have been very pleasantly surprised that we've been able to get that from all kinds of sources. But if you have someone who likes to help us with administration, we'd be glad to take money for TRAC and pass that on to a good cause. At this point, let's go to Tiffany and let her talk about public image.
All right. So as we talk about public image, one of the things that we want to make sure you know as district chairs is that you also have regional directors that you can reach out to, and we're going to make sure that everyone knows who yours is. You'll be communicating with them on a regular basis, depending on what region of the country you're in. So one of the things that people ask us most often is, where do I get the buckets? I've seen these little cups. Where do I get those? Rod Funderburk is the lucky individual that is the keeper of buckets right now. Thousands of buckets. And if you need new buckets to replace ones that are starting to wear thin, the words have worn off the sides, they've cracked, they've broken, they've disappeared for some reason. If you get in touch with Rod, he will be the person that will share those with you and get them in the mail to you. If you have seen people using the little cups that they put in their car or on their nightstand, those are available for purchase by a gentleman named Rich Harrison. At the Gmail address there, he has a form where you can order them. And we will be sharing these slides with you all and a handbook that we're going to be giving you as well that will give you all of these contact information. So if you don't get it tonight, it's quite okay. But I wanted you to know where to get those buckets and cups. You may recall last fall, we rolled out the brand new logo and a new branding campaign for CART. The logo that we use, you will notice, does not have the Rotary cog on it because we are not a Rotary International partner. We are a partner of your districts and we are a partner of clubs, but we are not a Rotary International partner. So we rely on you guys as our advocates, as our spokespersons, to make sure that we are always using the correct branding materials. This is the one sheet that explains our colors, our correct logos. These are the only 3 logos that we should be using, unless you choose to do a lockup with your club or district logo. And in that case, you could put the CART logo with your district number if it is a CART district project, or with your club logo if it is a club project. But we want to make sure that everyone is using the correct information. This is an example of the homepage of our website. If you have not visited it lately, please do. The website cartfund.org it was redone last fall as well. There is a page on there for news where I share the stories that you guys give me. There is a page for fundraisers and special events where we can publicize your club or your district fundraisers. And there's a calendar on there that has all of the activities that we participate in. So as a district chair, if you are out speaking to clubs in your district, if you will send me a list of those dates and club names that you're going to be speaking, we even add those to the district, to the CART calendar as well. What happens is if someone is wanting to learn more about CART and they go to our website and they see that we are speaking all over the country somewhere every day of the week, it really gives us a lot of credibility. It makes people realize that if they want to learn more and there's a meeting in their area, they could attend. But more than anything, it just shows how active and busy we are as an amazing team of volunteers. So I want to remind you that if you're doing those presentations, please share them with me and I'll get them on the calendar. There are QR codes out there that will take you directly to the website and also to the donor portal. And the new CART buckets have the QR code on the side where if you scan it, it will take you directly to the CART portal so people can make a donation sitting at their lunch table if they want, or from anywhere, honestly. And then also our e-newsletter, which goes out once a month. You have to opt into that. I don't have permission to just randomly add people to that list, but it's in the upper right-hand corner of our website. It says sign up for CART News. You can sign up there if you're not getting it. If by chance you do have a club that says we are willing for our entire club to be signed up for this, if you let me know, I can make that happen with an export from DACDB and an import into the mailing list. But I would never do that without permission from that club president. So just keep that in mind if you want to get signed up for the newsletter. If you want to make that part of your presentation that you're telling people about, that they can do that as well. We do have a new award that we created last year called the Changemaker Award. It's basically a Volunteer of the Year award. And you as a district chair have the opportunity to select that individual that will be recognized from your district. I encourage you to work with your district governor line as one of your partners to help select that person. And we will we'll create a certificate that we give you. You can print the certificate. You can have it made into a plaque, as some folks have done. You can recognize that individual at a district event or at a district conference or a training or a club event if you have to. But it's a great way for us to say thank you, which we believe is really, really important. So don't forget that that Changemaker Award is an opportunity for you to recognize a volunteer of the year. We do offer CART branded apparel on our website. It is a store that we contract with through a different company. And so it's not open all the time, but when it's open, you can order on there, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get things back to you. We are going to be opening that up again very, very soon. This is an opportunity for us to have clothing and items that will help us to promote our brand, but we can also use it as a fundraiser. We will get a percentage of the proceeds of everything that is purchased given directly back to TRAC that Rod was talking about earlier. The beauty of us not being a Rotary International partner is that if you wanted to create something with the CART logo on it, you do not have to use a Rotary International licensed vendor. So if you want to print something specific in your district or in a club, if you use the Rotary logo in any form or fashion, it must be approved. But if you are only using the CART logo, you have our permission to do that. We'd be happy to look at it before you print it or design it to help with that if you want us to. But those are a great way when you're going out doing presentations to share the CART logo. We have a postcard that we designed that we are more than happy to share with you as district chairs. We can give you the file if you would like to have some printed on your own. We can provide you with a small amount of them as well. They are truly intended to go to individuals that know nothing about CART, because it's basically an about us postcard with the QR code that goes to the website, not the donor portal. So if you're speaking to a club that has traditionally given thousands and thousands of dollars every year to CART, this is probably not the place that you need this postcard. But for those of you who are new to CART, we have folks online with us tonight all over the country, and you're introducing CART, you're getting buckets. We're trying to provide you with these postcards as well. If you need more of those, please let me know. I'll be happy to get those to you. Rod is not going to tell you this. He is our board president. He's also his district chair. And so he does double duty promoting CART in 7770. And he had this lovely tablecloth made that he uses when he does displays. We can put you in touch with someone that can help you with that. You can certainly do one with someone in your own district if you would like. And the pop-up tabletop display, which we had made as well. We have a limited number of those. We'll be buying some more in the coming year. Again, if you have money in your district budget and you are able to spend that, we would be happy to give you the files for these items. But we can also help you by providing some on a limited basis as well. And they make great for displays. I wanted to share with you also our social media, and then have a few other things to show you very quickly. Try to check my time, make sure I haven't gone over. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel. We encourage you, if you are on any of these social media accounts, to not only follow us, but also share our information. I've gotten several questions about YouTube. If you go to one of our YouTube videos, you will see in the corner, it'll say subscribe. If you click subscribe, then you'll be notified of all the new videos when they are uploaded. You can even click a little bell in the corner, and it will actually email you when a new video is added. But it's a great way to keep up with the meetings that you might miss. Of course, our website is on there as well. So we've created a new handbook for you guys that we are going to be distributing with the video for this event tonight. And I just wanted to, most of these topics have already been covered by someone tonight, but I wanted to touch on a few very quickly in the last few minutes of my session, that we really believe partnerships are important in CART. And as we mentioned earlier, we're not a Rotary International partner. Rotary is very supportive of what we do, but we are district partners. And it's important that you as a district chair work very closely with other partners in your district. People like the district governor line, to ask them, can you be included in the district trainings? Can you have a booth at the district conference? Can you have a speaker there? Can you provide an award? Any of those things, to set goals, things like that. You want to find out in your district who is your public image chair. Work with that entire team to provide articles and photos and things to go into the district newsletter. Make sure that the links on your district website are correct. Many of them have, that I see on a regular basis, have the old CART logo on them and a paragraph. that someone has copied and pasted from a website that's several years old and no longer exists. So if you can talk your district website webmaster into just putting a link to the cart page, that'd be great. If you want a paragraph on there that has your contact information, that'd be great. But we want to make sure that we're using the correct branding and logo. Work with your district awards team to perhaps do some sort of competition in your district for total giving, most per capita giving, and maybe the most recurring donors. And then of course for your Changemaker Award as well. One of the other things we would like to ask you to consider is working with your district governor and your finance team to add a line item in your district's annual budget. Several districts provide a small amount every year for operational support for CART that goes to track, and we appreciate that, and that's very helpful as we're buying things like postcards and buckets and all of that good stuff. And the recommended amount is only a minimum of $200 per year. Some districts give more, some don't give it all, but we hope that they will consider doing that. Or perhaps ask your district governor line and your finance team if they'll put some money in the budget to support you as a district chair, some reimbursement for some of the things that you purchase or things like that. And then finally, also one of your district partners should be your district conference chair, so that you can have a speaker on the agenda or something in the House of Friendship, or also a presentation of awards. And then we want you to partner with your club leaders as well. Rod mentioned the importance of having a club chair in each club in your district. At our monthly meetings every month, which we call CART Conversations, we have a different speaker every month that will provide a wealth of information. And coming up in October, I believe it is, because we have them scheduled out so far, we're going to have someone talking to you if you don't know how to create a committee list in DACTB. We're going to be sharing that. Go and schedule speakers and presentations at your clubs. Make sure that your clubs have little blue buckets if they want to use them, and that you be the conduit to get those out to them. There is a district chair in Florida that does an amazing job of sharing a monthly email with all of her club chairs. Encourage your clubs to make donations online, so that we don't have to go to the bank. That is the first and foremost way to make sure that the correct club and correct district gets credit for the money. There are some instances of checks that cannot be deposited into the portal. We do have with Terry and with Michelle Garashielik, who is our help desk folks. They can help you with that if you need it. But obviously, anytime we can get them online, that'll reduce the amount of mistakes that we can make. Perhaps consider that your clubs can do honorariums for guest speakers by making a donation to CART. One of the best things that you can do is to enroll as a recurring donor in our Roger Ackerman Circle, and encourage all of your club chairs to do that as well. And we have some thank yous that we give out to people when we do that as well. And then don't forget, other partners are us, your CART leaders, attending our monthly meetings of the conversations, which are held in the evenings once a month, and the lunch a la carte, which is a previous CART researcher. And those are always held from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern time at different times each month. And if you can attend those, we would love to have you. We want you to share it with other people because it's some great information. We want you to share with us past events, future events that we can put on our social media. We want you to work with us to recognize a volunteer of the year. We want you to follow us on social media. And of course, as Terry and Rod both mentioned, recommendations for major gifts, planned gifts, gifts of stock, grants, and operational research. All of those things are things that we would love for you to help us with, and be and use us as your partners for that.
I get a lot of questions as I speak to clubs about how in the world we decide where to put the money. It's a fairly simple process. In the fall, we have a committee headed by Dr. Gary Goforth. They send out an invitation letter to every single institution in the US that we know of is doing Alzheimer's research. And we use lots and lots of sources to get that information. And we send the letters by email and by postal. So it's a duplicate letter, knowing that some people read one kind of mail and another person reads a different kind of mail. So they go by postal service as well as email. And we solicit from them applications for our grants. We tell them what the grant's about, what we're looking for, and we invite them to provide us with a letter of intent. It's a short 2-page deal. It says, this is what we want to do research on. This is what we think will be the results. We have a panel of experts, 3 renowned researchers, Dr. Carl Harrop, who's in Pittsburgh, Dr. Alan Levy, who's at Emory in Atlanta, and Dr. Julie Snyder, who's at Rush University, and they wade through all the letters of intent. Depending on what year it is, it could be a real short list of 30 people. It could, or a good year, it could be 100. Just depends on what the flavor is of the year. They narrow the field to about a dozen, and they go back to those dozen and say, we want additional information, and they provide the researchers with a 20-page application form. And those come in before early February, and the panel wades through those and ranks them in order of what they provide as the success rate of the project. We meet the first week of March with that panel, and they provide to us their recommendations of each grant that they would give money to if it was their own personal money. And we fund as many of those as we have money for. And so basically, whatever money's in the bank, March the 1st, that's what we give away. This past year, we had enough for 3 grants, and we gave away those 3 grants the first week in May. We need to just make the decision by the middle of March or so, in order to notify all the folks that they have received the grant or they didn't make it. And we need to make a travel arrangement so they can come to our annual meeting. And at the annual meeting, those researchers that are about to get money give a 20 to 30 minute talk about their project. It's a wonderful opportunity for you and me to hear about the research, to hear about what they're doing, and to ask questions about their projects. And at the end of their presentation, we present them with a facsimile of a check. We use a 3x5 board. So it looks nice in a photo. And then later we give them a real paper check, but they don't have to walk on the airplane with those huge 3x5 things. But that's basically how the grant process works. We've given away 66 so far in the history of CART for $11.5 million. And we look forward to giving away a lot more, and looking forward to finding folks who have a really great idea. Just for information, the money goes in 4 pieces. They get a fourth of it in May, and then 8 months later, they give us a report that says, this is what we've done so far. This is how we spent the money so far. This is successes we've done so far. And they get another check. And 8 months later, they give us another report, and they get another check. And so eventually they get the final report, and the final report must be publishable to the public. We at CART want everything to be above board and visible, because if they are successful and they get a little clue, we want that clue to be used by the next person to go further in the research, because our goal is obviously to find a cure or a prevention for this thing.
Many of you asked, in case you haven't seen it in the chat, the cost of the buckets. That is something that we provide to you at no cost to you. That is part of one of the operational expenses from TRAC. And we do that because we believe that is a tool that is really necessary for you to do your job. We don't want to ask you to pay for that, or for your district to pay for that. So we do provide those at no charge. So that's what that is. Those cups, on the other hand, are an extra thing. So that's not something that we provide at no charge. However, if you get with Rich Harrison, he will take care of those for you.
I was able to, I'm a new district chair, so I'm learning the ropes, but I had made the card pins, and it's my understanding those are for people that make recurring donations. Is that correct? I had a gentleman the other day that wants to order from me 4 cart pins, and I'm not sure what to tell him. I haven't seen anything that's a regular cart pin, or what do I do?
Just tell them that we don't have those yet. We're working on them. That's part of our branding campaign for this year. So we do not have any current correctly branded cart pins other than the ones for the recurring donors at this time.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
When Terry was speaking, I know in the past before the portal came into wide use that the cart chairs used to have to collect the money from the clubs and then make a deposit. Was that what you were referring to, Terry, as far as getting a deposit slip to make a deposit in Wells Fargo?
I was talking about those checks that you cannot deposit via EFT. The classics that you might see are, say, a QCD contribution from somebody's IRA. That check will not clear through normal EFT, though those accounts are blocked. So that would have to be sent to a district cart chair who has bank deposit slips and would enter that contribution manually.
And where do I get the bank deposit slips?
We'll get those to you. There are district chairs that do not have Wells Fargo banks in their areas. And so Michelle has been handling that for those people, but we'll make sure you get some if you need some there. And as Terry mentioned, those QCDs, and also if it's a large amount, Terry, I don't remember, is it $10,000? Is that the threshold?
Well, there is a $10,000 limit on our EFT. That's so we don't have somebody mistakenly enter $100,000 and clean out their bank account. But seriously, the $10,000 limit is, you can run as many $10,000 transactions as it takes if you've got a big check that actually, would otherwise clear through an electronic funds transfer, just a personal check, for example.
And we obviously encourage everyone to use the portal as often as possible, but on those rare instances when you must use, there are some certain things that you have to put on the deposit slip and all of that. So Michelle handles most of those.
I did. My question is about recurring donations. In my club, I stand up every week, ask people to give money. How do you know who's recurring as opposed to somebody who goes onto the website and says, I'm going to give, $10 a week or whatever?
So Terry, you can probably pull it up quicker than I can, that will show where that report is in the portal. And while he's pulling that up for you, you can actually see a report and you can now sort it. Thank you, Terry, by district. So you can easily look and see who in your district is on that list. And we encourage you, I should have mentioned this during my public image session, so I apologize. We will be providing each of you with a template of a PowerPoint presentation that you could use when you go out and do presentations. And we encourage you to include the encouragement of people signing up for this recurring donor program as part of your presentation. But I'm going to let Terry talk you through where you find that now.
I should have shown that. This is back on the reports page. Down here at the bottom center, there's a recurring EFT subscription report. And that is the report of all recurring contribution entries. It'll give you the time, the period, the amount, whether it's credit card, et cetera. And so you can basically walk through those and see. You can sort it, of course, by district. You can sort it by club name and so forth. And like most cart reports, you'll notice there is an export to Excel here. So if you want to do some other slicing and dicing, you can do that. But the place where you can learn, or you can find out who has recurring contributions set up is that spot. I would make mention that we do not have a way for someone to change a recurring contribution if they change bank accounts or want to switch credit cards or whatever. So just refer those to Michelle and she'll delete the existing contribution and have the donor enter a new one. There's also a contribution history report that I failed to mention. And this is a report that's mostly used for either troubleshooting, or you'll notice it also has a start date, end date fence on it, meaning that if somebody says, I'll propose a match, we'll start at Labor Day, and everybody that makes a contribution between Labor Day and Christmas, I'll match those. You can find those kinds of drill downs on this cart contribution history report. It is really more designed for troubleshooting and for some of those kinds of things where you need a time fence.
Thank you, Terry. It really goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. And then Linda, I see you have your hand up. I'll come right to you. That the information that you as district chairs have access to there is confidential information, because these are people's donor histories and their contributions. And if I'm correct, and Terry will correct me if I'm wrong, club chairs would not be able to see that recurring EFT transaction report probably, but district chairs could. And we just remind you that that's not to be used for shaming someone into giving more, but it is we do have to be very careful with what information is available to different people, because anytime you start talking about someone's finances, that is very confidential, obviously. And we,
Terry, is there a way now that cart chairs can go on the reports and remove clubs that are no longer in existence and add clubs that are new?
You don't have that prerogative yourself, but I'll be happy to handle those for you, or Michelle can. Just let us know.
Okay, thank you.
The unfortunate part about that is that we have no visibility of that. There's no available report that I know of from RI, for example, that says, here are the new clubs and here are the clubs that went away or merged or whatever. So we do have to kind of count on the front line to report that.
Thank you.
especially if that happens during the middle of your Rotary year, that's something you have to tell Terry and Michelle about. But Terry's really good about either once or twice a year running a report to update the numbers. If you look at your club today and you say, well, we have a lot more members than it says, so our per capita is wrong. He waits until the final numbers are available from Rotary International, which I think is in the next week or so, right? And then he will update all of that. So usually by early August, your per capita numbers and new clubs and things like that will be updated. But if it changes mid-year, they have to tell you, right, Terry?
Thank you all.
And you are correct, Tiffany, that the club cart chairs do not have access to that donor history report. You could get it from your district chair for your club.
You had mentioned something about a PowerPoint template. Is that coming or is it already available?
It is coming. We have an executive committee meeting later this week. So we've got a couple of things to approve, and then I'll be sending out everything at one time to our district chairs. I will send the handbook that I mentioned. I will send the PowerPoint template, and I will send another link to the folder that has all of the downloads that you can use. So if your clubs still have the older style cart buckets and you want to print labels to put on the side instead of asking for new buckets right now, all of that is in a file folder that I will share with you guys again. You can download all of that. And so it'll be the PowerPoint, the handbook, a link to all of those downloads, and I'm sure there was something else, and the link to this video when it is uploaded on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for all that you do to support CART. We really appreciate you.